Thanks for joining us here on The Object of the Game. I'm Maureen Kyle with Coach Chuck Kyle. And today we are going to be talking about something pretty big that's happening that we've been getting a lot of questions about, which is the film, the documentary film, also called The Object of the Game. But this is all based on a book called The Object of the Game that, Dad, from what I remember, I'm trying to think, I was like in grade school or high school when you wrote this. So this isn't something new, because I've had a lot of people come up to me going, "Oh, I didn't know your dad was writing a book." I'm like, "Oh, no, this has been out for a long time."
All right.
Right?
1996
Yeah.
was when I first started. I think it was published in 97 by the time I went. Okay. I was an English teacher, and as soon as you major in English, at some point you start thinking maybe you'll write a book someday.
Yeah.
That's what English majors sort of do. And coaching, the plots are there, the characters are there, the drama is there, and so on like that. And start realizing vicariously you could hand a book to a young person and they learn something, and then they can also be out into the field of play and learn something. So that's what started this whole approach to the object of the game. And so sat down, wrote it, and things have happened since writing it.
Yeah. But for anybody who's unfamiliar, and, I have to point out that, our friend John Gannon, who apparently goes by Jonathan now too, Jonathan Gannon, he's very proper. Coach of the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, when he sat down, and you'll see it in the trailer for the film that is going to come up, we'll show it to you in a little bit, but he sits down and says, "Hey, this book was the playbook. I think anybody can pick this up, and this is, how they can approach sports." So for anybody who doesn't know about the book and hasn't read it, what kind of philosophies did you write into it?
Well, the idea of it is just various themes, like we end the show with, in a way.
I mean, we talk about it here, yeah.
There are themes and life lessons with it, and the idea of just commitment. One of the chapters is commitment. I'm just using that as an example, and I share some things that happened in the season, but I also go back in literature and cite some things from a book or something that showed how the character's commitment and other themes too, and it's just simply that sports, again, very, very educational experience, and all sports are. But we've been constantly saying with our podcast here is that the football field is a classroom, and I firmly believe that, and so that's kind of what the book was trying to show and share real stories, and I think I went on my way to, because of it being an English major, there are characters in stories that certainly that theme was quite apparent. So that's sort of what happened, really.
Yeah. And it's kind of amazing that it's almost 30 years old at this point, this book. And we're going to talk to, as I mentioned, Matt Waldeck, the filmmaker behind The Object of the Game documentary. And this is something he read and something he lived as a player at Ignatius, but I think this is what we're all craving as people who, as the world of sports is changing into a more corporate environment, getting back to what those lessons really are. So I think that that's going to speak to this, like I said, craving that society's having right now about, like, what does sports really mean? Like, and are you realizing that as you're talking to parents and you're seeing how sports has evolved with NIL and all this other corporate stuff?
There is, and there's also, I'll be honest with you, certainly for the young kids to doing that, and I think parents should get back to that too. I really do. I think the concerns of, well, he can get a scholarship to college, or he can be in the pros and so on. That by some amazing possibility, is it there? Yeah, but come on. The ability, again, to work with other people or to find something that you're willing to sacrifice your time for with no guarantee that you win. There's no guarantee. Those sort of themes, those are valuable, and there's a need to get back to that. There is. I mean, it's the world of sports are wonderful, but there's as everybody is seeing. Let's not lose sight of what for 99.9 whatever percent of the young people out there, it's not going to be a pro contract, but it's going to be a lesson in life and something they'll remember.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, like I mentioned, Matt Waldeck with Zodiac Features. He's a filmmaker. He's going to go into not only the world of filmmaking, which I think is fascinating, but he kind of marries Hollywood with the love of NFL. And he's going to talk about how he sat in front of Roger Goodell and Tony Romo and talked about what sports really meant to them and this common denominator of the love of football. So we're going to go in depth with Matt when we come back. Welcome back to the Object of the Game show, podcast, digital show. I had to say the object of the game because I've heard that we have to be very specific. There's a book, there's this show, and there's a documentary that's coming out, and they're all named pretty much the same thing. Dad, Mom was the one who pointed out I needed to say the object of the game.
Yes, she has pointed out you forgetting the article adjective in front
this is
object. So,
you know,
I'm not going to remind you ever again. But there's a voice back here going, the object of the game.
The object of the game. Well, it's because that has been a theme that you've had for a long time with the book, but then also we've been getting a lot of questions about the documentary that is coming out. And our guest today, Matt Waldeck. Dad, why don't you introduce Matt and explain when you guys first met?
Sure. Well, we first met, oh my. Why, this young boy was I didn't have him in class, though. I did not have you in class, but he was a football player for the St. Ignatius Wildcats, and he went on and played safety and did a great job. And we had that type of coach player connection. And really, what I'm looking back at what will shape this show just a little bit is that at the end of playing days. Senior year, right? I always say, if you want to play in college, and please come see me, and I'll get a hold of what people have your name out there, whatever. And so Matt comes in, and but he was very few come in and go, here's the specific college, and here's the specific what I want to study. Most of them come and go, no, I don't know, business something, and they give you kind of a loose thing. You're like, well, thank you for all the information, but I'll get your name out. Anyway, he comes in and, Coach, I want to go into the film. I'm producing films, working with film. Could you get a hold of Pitzer College for me?
Pitzer College.
And I said, well, sure, Matt. Where is Pitzer College? Because I never heard of it, but he had already done the research, and in California, and I had this big booklet that has every coach in America and every college, Division III, II, whatever you want to do. So sure, and I go, why? What? I want to get into film. I want to get into the film industry. So there's not many. Over the years, young men coming in knowing exactly where they were going. So we got to find out where this all came from. So sure, phone call. The guy's out in California going, Cleveland St. Ignatius, sure have him. Come on. Well, it's one of those things. And Matt, the rest is history here.
Matt, do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, I do. I do because, Chico was obsessed with the mascot
Yes.
What was the mascot?
Well,
Oh, wait, I heard about this.
He
I
knew,
forget.
he knew about the NYU Violets.
Yeah.
Right.
NYU has
Because
great.
my
film
sister went there.
program. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Chico was in, and so Pitzer is the Sage Hens.
Yes.
Sage
How about
hens.
that? The sage hens.
Are they the fighting sage hens or just?
I don't know. I'd call them that. I would.
Sage
They
hens.
had to, for me. It had to be the fighting stages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Sage Hen has a defense mechanism.
Okay.
Similar to a possum, right? So if a predator attacks it, it runs in a circle, it gives itself a heart attack, and then it dies.
Oh.
And then it comes back, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right.
Thank
Thank you for that story.
Yeah.
Other than that,
interesting.
I had no
got
idea.
his start coaching there
No.
at Pomona College, right? So it's
Right.
Pomona Pitzer Sage Hens.
Okay.
And Greg Popovich started coaching at Pomona
There you
College.
We are learning so much today.
Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
he'll mention it.
A
you know.
storied college.
Yes.
You had no idea.
There's history.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
So
When you came in, I should have known right away. I should have gone. You should go to Pitzer College.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
sage hens. Yeah. So let's go back even further. Like you
Yeah.
played football. Tell me about those days playing football and I mean we always talk about youth sports on this show. So like how did you get into it and
Yeah.
what was your favorite sport?
yeah, I mean, I started playing tackle football in 3rd grade, and I remember there's a kid, Anthony Rosselli. I haven't talked to him, I don't know, 30 years, but he was going on for the football team, and I said, "Oh, that sounds pretty good,"
Yeah.
And so I played offensive guard my first year in
Whoa.
3rd grade,
You never told me that.
and
Wow.
then became a running back, for the next 5 years or whatever, and then until I went to Ignatius, of course,
Mm.
and got moved immediately.
Yeah.
I think on the 3rd day.
What position did you get moved to?
I was moved from running back. Well, but back then we had a really tough guy, Cleveland fireman George Benedict was
Right.
the running back coach,
Mhm.
and it was so tough. We had to do fireman's carries and do like a mile basically, and you would have a partner and you'd switch off every 400 meters.
Learning
my
that
gosh.
team concept there,
Learning
wasn't
the
that?
team
That's why he was
concept.
doing it, I'm sure.
And it was like Ryan Franzinger was in the running backs group, who was probably weighed 220 pounds as a freshman. I probably weighed 160 pounds or something. I don't know. But anyway, the next day there was 10 guys the first day, and there's like 2 guys in the running back group the next day because it was so tough. And then after a while, it said, "Well, thanks for your time here, but you're gonna go with the safeties."
Mhm.
And so that was sort of how I got into football. Just but I just loved it. I got coaching books. I would set up training courses in the yard. I just loved football. I loved it, and still love it. And so obviously connecting that with making a film now
Mm-hmm.
in my career has been not work, right? It was amazing to come back to the game after being away from it for I stopped playing when I was like 22 years old. I'm 41 now, so I really was away from it for a while, and coming back to it was just so comfortable.
Yeah.
And I really kind of had to stop myself a few times from really just I don't know, getting too caught in the weeds, I guess. It's like, all right, we're telling a story here. Like,
Oh.
I would want to know about the football sort of X's and
Y-
O's
y-
and of it. And,
Yeah.
Well, it in all actuality, there's a reason why he ends up at safety.
Mhm.
So what's the characteristics of a safety? Well, your corner is basically going to go one-on-one with a wide receiver, and it's not knocking it, but it's not quite as complex. There's your situation in front of you. Am I playing a little zone, or am I playing man? And various. The safety is really involved in all the calls. He's changing the coverages. Is it zone? He's got to adjust. Hey, he reads run. He's another linebacker. I mean, so there's a lot more understanding of the game with safety. Even if you watch the pros, that's true. There's way more that happens there. So when you put somebody at safety, they've got to have a good picture of the game. So I just
So it's
that's
an
kind
important
of
position.
also why
It's
you
a
were going.
compliment.
How's
It's a
that?
compliment. There you go.
that's a football.
We weren't gonna
compliment.
Yeah.
we weren't gonna say that to you when you were 15 years old. What?
Yeah.
Hey, let's explain why.
Yeah.
No, he seems to get it. Mentally, what's going on.
Yeah.
Which is what I really liked about it. too.
Yes,
I
well,
love
that's
film
what
study.
right.
I love
That's
that.
I think one of the things that maybe I'm reaching here, but I mean that idea. There's more to it than just what's
Yeah.
in front of my plate and what's in front of me here.
Yeah, the preparation.
Yeah.
I really
And the
enjoyed.
planning and the understanding of the whole concept,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back with Matt Waldeck, we're going to talk about the films that he's worked on, the film coming up, The Object of the Game, and why he chose to focus in on that. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Object of the Game. The Object of the Game. Sorry, Mom. I'm going to correct that every time I do that. We are talking with Matt Waldeck, who is behind the film that maybe you've seen the trailer for. We're going to play it at some point within this show so that you see the Object of the Game documentary that is on tap. But we're talking to Matt about getting into the film business. And Matt, we've already established, in case somebody is just joining us, that you were a football player at Ignatius. So knew that you wanted to go into film, which is, as Dad, you pointed out, not the typical path that you had a lot of your players want to go into. So why, so talk to us about actually, so you get through college, you played for the Sage Hens,
Yeah.
and that part of life is over. How do you start to get into film, and what direction did you take?
Mm-hmm. Well, I started in the business as soon as I got out to Los Angeles, and that's why I really picked Pitzer and also Occidental College, where I think Obama went there, right?
Yeah.
And Ben Affleck had gone there. Anyway, I was just trying to get close to LA, and I wanted to keep playing football because I had been doing it for so long. That was just, and I loved it. So, I started out as an actor. Actually, this is before, Ohio had tax credits where big films were coming in.
Oh yeah.
So you don't know anything about the movie business. There's nothing at Ignatius at that time to teach you about the movie business. I didn't know anybody in it. I knew what a director was and an actor was. My dad had done some acting when he was in high school at Ignatius. My mom's a singer. She sang with the Cleveland Orchestra Choir.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So there was some performative aspects in the family, and everyone was a pretty good storyteller, and that was a real currency in the family. And so, and we just consumed a lot of movies. That was pretty much the weekend. It was like, this stack high of VHS tapes from kids. There's a video rental store that would usually smell like cigarettes. And you would go out there and you would look at the shelves and you'd look at the cover on the VHS tape and see what was interesting, and then see if your parents would let you rent it. And I remember seeing my first ever movie in the theaters, which was RoboCop.
Oh my gosh.
Which had carried an X rating, an NC-17 rating.
Oh, wow.
When it first came out. But we saw that on a family road trip in 1987.
Oh my gosh.
In Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Wow.
And it was so terrifying. I sat on my mother's lap the whole time.
Oh my god.
But that was the first movie I saw in 1987.
Did you have one on repeat? Like every family had that one movie that they watched over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a few,
Yes,
but
you did.
Yeah, I mean, we would have the traditional, Christmas Vacation was the holiday repeat. But the repeats were mostly my kid sister with, just Disney. She ran the show. And
okay.
so I was just I was a passenger. for
Okay.
those. But
I didn't know if there was one that had a big impact where you're like, yes, Ernest Goes to Camp changed my life. I watched it every weekend.
Look, RoboCop at 3 years old is
That's pretty big. That is pretty big.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
But so I loved movies. My favorite part at Ignatius every school year was making our Spanish video.
Wow.
So it's just little bits and pieces. And then, as soon as I got to college, I started borrowing anybody who had a car. I would borrow their car, drive into LA, and I would go audition for these, parts. I knew nothing.
Yeah.
I knew nothing, and then had a little beginner's luck and landed a few commercials and a TV pilot with Stan Lee.
Oh, wow.
Before Marvel came out, I had no idea who he was. I didn't read comic books as a kid.
Wow.
So, you have this certain, naivete. People talk about that a lot. You don't know what you don't know. And so, I had some beginner's luck. And then I just sort of put it on hold, as you say. I said, oh, this is easy. I'll finish college and then I'll come back to it, which of course that doesn't happen.
That's not as easy.
That doesn't happen. I just got really lucky. And then just for about 5-6 years after school, was working on a soap for a while.
Oh my gosh.
And then I
Wow.
learned the production side of it
Mhm.
Okay.
and was seeing, okay, well, this is a job and people can make a living at this. And I learned all the different, parts from, who coils the cable and sound and all
Right.
those different elements. Because on a movie, scripted movie, you're doing between like 1 and 6 pages of script a day. On a soap, you're doing like 100 to 200 pages of script
Oh
a
my
day.
gosh.
So it's
Wow.
it's a well-oiled machine, and I was like, bartender, like I talked one time in
Yeah.
30 episodes, so I was just watching a lot,
Wow.
and so really learned this whole other element of it, and then always was writing, and met an entertainment attorney from Sugar and Falls, who happened to know another guy who was producing films back in Cleveland and financing films.
Hmm.
And so I met that guy, and he offered me a job.
Oh my gosh.
And so after 11 years in LA, I moved back to Cleveland.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I worked with him for.
So then, what was the first film?
The first film. So I
For you.
worked with that guy Tyler Davidson for a couple of films, and then branched off and started the movie that's producing your film, Chico.
Mhm.
Oh wow.
The
Okay.
object of the game.
Yeah.
So the first film was called I See You, which was a thriller starring Helen Hunt, which was #1 on Netflix
Right.
last year for about a month. So that was a scripted film that I produced,
Uh-huh.
and then once COVID hit, there was some difficulties with the unions and
Yeah.
Sure.
improving the safe practices for that. So we needed to keep making projects. So we switched to nonfiction, and then I started directing and producing, and we would raise the money and finance these projects.
Mm.
So we've kind of just had like 3 nonfiction documentaries in a row, and thankfully Chico was willing to and game to do object of the game.
So what sparked that though? Like, why did you think the object of the game is going to be a documentary? Like, what was it about that story, or what was it that made you want to produce
Well,
and direct?
You
That
know, obviously, having gone through the program was a totally different experience, because by the time I got there, it was just going. There was like this 9th state championship that
Yeah.
my class won. So it was sort of like a corporate environment almost, right? Like you didn't
Wow.
want to derail the train.
Yeah.
You better do your thing. Chico takes your meeting at the end of this year. He tells you
Yeah.
what you got to get better at. And then you just hit the weight room, hit the track, and then you sort of see where you are.
Yeah.
And Chico tells you, like, here you are on the depth chart. Here's what you have to do. And you got like 4 months to get what you want and hit your goals. So it was pretty cut and dry. But I would say like the drama of the game was always there. And I specifically remember September 11th, 2001.
Mm.
And if you remember, I just drove back from DC yesterday, so you drive past the United
Yeah.
33 memorial site, but there was a plane heading to Cleveland,
Yeah.
right? And obviously it's a chaotic day that started at the beginning of the school day, so everything is different that day, and you're walking in and teachers are looking at the TV, right?
Mm.
And so all the sort of adult leaders in your environment are not doing what they normally do,
Hmm.
except for Chico, because all of a sudden kids start getting pulled out of school.
Yeah.
By the time first period's around, right, you've got 30 kids in your class. By the time 8th period or 9th period's around, you got like 7 kids left in your class.
Oh wow.
And most of them are your football teammates, because we're going to practice that day. And that was the week that we had it was the #1. We were the #1 team in the state, and Massillon was the #2 team in the state. And many other schools canceled their games that week, except we didn't. And
Yes.
so
There's
so I-
reasons for that.
Wait, go into the reasons.
Well, you ready? There's reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we explained it, but it's a long time ago. Meanwhile, that day,
Yeah.
young lady right over there and her younger sister were in New York City.
All right. Which I didn't know.
And I had to
until-
turn to you guys and go, fellas, we're starting practice. I don't know. I haven't heard from my daughters that are in New York City. Your sister Annie was about, just a mile.
Right.
I
She
mean,
was at NYU, so
she was in NYU. She was very
but it was her
close.
first few days too.
Yeah.
Now
it was.
this show's turning into a reminiscing thing. But
Right.
I remember you guys dropped her off September 5th.
Right.
Because that's Mom's birthday. So I remember
Right.
like, okay, oh wow, you know, for your birthday you're in New York City. But I had been there a while. I think I spent that whole summer before there
All right.
too.
The atmosphere of
Yeah.
that day. By the way, the point being made that people were up. I did say if anybody felt they had to go home, go ahead. But we had a directive, first of all, not to have kids get on the highway at that point because the highways were packed with people going home and everything. And we were asked to not necessarily add to the chaos that was out there because the idea was we have them, they're protected, they're in school, so on like that. And I think I did say that's whoever did this is exactly what they want, chaos. And they're not going to change the United States of America for what they're doing. So we're going to be America today and we are every day. So that was my point. They wanted to cancel the game. I'm fine. I don't care. But I wasn't going to let that situation change America.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
I mean, that's when you're 17, 18 years old. I mean, that is a huge moment, right?
Mhm.
And then, you show up for the game. There's 20, 25,000 people there
A
at
lot
this
of
game.
people.
The firemen have the boots out, raising money for FDNY. And then, Bill Livingston's quote after we win the game, of course, is, in a week of chaos, return to normalcy on
Right.
Friday night.
That
or
was
Saturday
important.
night, right?
Yeah.
So leading all that back into, there's inherent drama in sports, obviously, but that was a formative experience. Obviously, Chico is, known for his charismatic, pregame speeches, which, is a feature of sports content, movies, drama, the big talk before, right? But then I'd say the most pleasant thing for me working with Chico as an adult has been getting into his philosophy and meeting Pat and seeing just how authentic all of that was, right? Because I'm just trying to get through it as 14 to 18 years old.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get through it and kind of accomplish my goals, and I'm not really thinking about it too much. But what I've been really impacted by is just that they really believed in what they were doing. The coaching staff, when I talked to them, they all believed really in the value of what they were doing and the philosophy. And that is worth making a film about, because win or loss, it doesn't matter. You can always succeed and be victorious if you buy into this philosophy that Chico developed and dedicated his life to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if as this film, people see it, if they do, you talked about pregame talks. I didn't change anything I was saying just because you guys had your camera there.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like, well, I have to act.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. We have a game.
Uh-huh.
These kids are going to play in the game. That's what's important. Go ahead. Have your camera.
Mhm.
That's great. But I'm going to be who I am. And this is how we play. If you ask any of the players, go, no, that's how he always was.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I do. I mean,
Right.
the one thing, when he says the pregame talks, and I just very simply to me, there's so much nervousness before a game.
Yeah.
There's some people out there, and
With
you're a
teenage
young
boys. Yeah.
16, 17-year-old kid. You're like, whoa, this is a little nervous. And very basically, to me, I never pictured pregame talks as motivation. I did not. If you're not motivated 2 minutes before a football game, you're in trouble. I mean, come on. It's not the speech. It's just you have to make that young man leave the locker room going, yes, I'm confident I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. You got to break away all that nervousness and just, let's go.
Yeah.
And so that's all. That's all I ever tried to do.
Yeah.
Because it's not too many adults even perform in front of thousands of people.
No, yeah,
right?
it's
I mean,
nerve-wracking.
it's and the ball bounces crazy, and
Yeah.
out there. So anyway,
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify that.
Well,
this isn't some kind of scripted thing that I
right.
Yeah.
had
It is
in
all
front of me
unscripted.
ever.
we're going to take a quick break again. This is flying by. When we come back talking about motivation, I want to pick Matt's brain about, because I know you've probably seen the trailer, and the question we're getting is like, why, like all these big names, they were willing to talk about the object of the game. They were willing to talk about this philosophy, about this book. So we're going to talk to Matt about talking to some of these big NFL names and how they received the object of the game philosophy. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Object of the Game. This is the digital show and podcast, but there's also The Object of the Game book and The Object of the Game documentary, which if you haven't seen the trailer, we're going to show that to you in a couple of minutes. But we have filmmaker Matt Waldeck, who is behind the documentary with us today, who played football for Coach Kyle. And that's where this film was sort of born from. Your experience with him as a coach, living that philosophy. What was it? And we kind of talked about it before, but why? You've talked about your love for football, your experience playing for St. Ignatius and that philosophy, your experience in filmmaking. Why did all of that make for a great recipe for this film? And how did it resonate with some people?
Well, I think in terms of resonating with people, you look at the amazing, football luminaries who've contributed to your film.
Yeah.
And,
Amazing.
none of those people were paid. These are guys who, their days are broken into 3-minute, capsules because they're so busy.
Yeah.
And they each felt compelled to participate in this film. Sean McVay, the coach of the Rams, Super Bowl winning coach, he said it to me. He said, I had to do this because I saw who else had done this and what a testament it is to Chuck Kyle that all of these people felt compelled to participate.
It's very humbling, believe me.
But
How
what's
this-
humbling about it is, what's amazing about it is that none of that stuff is intentional with you because what you're doing is authentic and what you had done, and that's what attracted me to it, right? So much football content that's out there right now, it's branded content, right? It's produced by the star players who have their own production companies, and that's good. That's fine. But as someone who loves the game and played it for as long as I humanly could, I felt that there was a good sort of boomerang effect to let's get back to where this all started.
Right.
And who embodies that better than Chico, who had
Yeah.
many other opportunities, myriad opportunities, probably opportunities that he never even shared with people. And yet he was, consistent and, just dedicated to this vocation, as he'll tell you. So that to me, getting down to the heart of it, because a movie, you can make a movie about anything, being a successful sports coach and motivational figure and all that, we've done that before. But getting down to the heart of the matter, that to me, because these projects take, 3 years of your life, and you can only make so many,
Right.
and yours is one of them.
But
So-
to give him proper credit here, I mean, Roger Goodell, the people that ended up going, sure, I'll be on it.
Yeah.
He's got to take some credit here.
Yeah.
Please.
I mean, that is very
Please.
impressive. That's
You-
what I keep hearing
You got
from
to
people.
Well,
somebody had to
Blake
deliver the
Williams-
message. You
Blake-
did.
Yeah, Blake Williams and
Blake
Greg
Williams
too.
helped out.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they were also inspired by what you were doing, right? And all of these guys who do dedicate their lives, they all love the game as well. And they said, Chico is good for the game. What you're doing is good for the game. It's good for football, and we want to celebrate that. We'll support that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people too, they say, hey, did this guy know Chico? Did Tony Romo know Chico? Well, no, he didn't know Chico, but he knows what, Tony Romo has the highest fourth quarter QB rating in NFL history. So he understands what faith in your
Right.
book as it relates to
Right.
believing in yourself and believing in a potential outcome.
Right.
He knows what that is.
Right.
And that is still Chico.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're universal for football virtues
Yeah.
that anybody can tap into.
I just not to give any profound thought on what you're going to see in the movie, but I think there's a consistency. Here are these men who've great success, whether it was coaching, playing, and so on, and they're enjoying the idea of talking about the game and what it taught them.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, is really touching. I mean, yes, it's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, but the game still must have that inside belief that yes, I found myself by doing this game. You know, that has to keep going.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah. Is that what you found when you sat down across from some of these people? I mean, like Roger Goodell. You know
Roger
Roger.
had
I mean,
already-
you guys
Yes,
have
I
a
was-
relationship.
Yes, yeah.
And there's other stories that one day on this show we'll go into
Mhm.
some about
Oh,
your meetings with Roger Goodell. But like when you sat down across from him, Matt, like what was that like? I mean, that's the guy. And here you bring him this, did you get 3 minutes of his time? Tell us about like what was that like?
It was also well with Roger. I mean, you're going to Manhattan,
Yeah.
looking up at the skyscraper.
Yeah.
But at the end, and then there was a fire drill. in
Oh,
the
no
building.
way. Oh,
So
no
I
way.
got as watching every single employee for the NFL file out of this building, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, okay, all right. But at the end of the day, it's still just football, right? So no matter, yes, there is this, multi, $1 million enterprise, and there's 126 million people that just watch the Super Bowl, but still at the end of the day, for Roger and Pete, who was the special projects guy over at the NFL at that time, it's still just football.
right.
And that to me as a filmmaker was very refreshing because that's what I know. I know how to talk to football people,
Right.
and they're resilient, and I just knew how to talk that
Right.
language.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think that's hopefully the rewarding idea of coming from the documentaries.
Yeah.
There's some people that are, and rightly so, fine. It's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Let's face it. I mean, come on. But they still can come back to, yes, and there's values, just human values, just as you, as a human being, that all sports can do, but football has some special areas that are really rewarding.
And I think that was the secret ingredient for your film too, because it doesn't have sort of the corporate gloss on it, right?
Right.
It's getting back to sort of these foundational elements. So it put the subjects, the VIP talking heads, put them at ease, and then they want to talk about something that they never get asked about.
Right. Oh yeah, they were
You're
not asked
asking
about this
the game
before.
on Sunday.
Right.
You're asking
Right.
about, well, what the game on Sunday when you were 6 years old.
Mhm.
Right. And one has to realize they want the game to continue. They want the younger kids in front of that television set watching the Super Bowl. And they realize this has this phenomenon of football, that it attracts the young guy, that he goes on to play in college and affects his career, or this guy that coached and all that. They certainly want that to continue for more ways than one. It's a big business, of course, but it's also that part of America. It really is.
Yeah. It's a great equalizer for anybody who's fallen, like bringing it back to what you said. You fell in love with the game when you were that age.
Right.
Like people love playing. Now girls are going to have the opportunity
right.
with flag football. I mean,
and it's-
believe me, we sat
it's
together
amazing.
watching the Super Bowl and I knew everything that was going on because I've watched so much football, but like
Mhm.
there is something about like what you said, the drama of the game and how people have experienced that and what they've learned from, even if they haven't played football, maybe it's another sport that they've learned from. So do you think if somebody, maybe they didn't play football, they love watching the game, maybe they played soccer, this will resonate with them?
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of universal, pearls of wisdom that are coming from some of the people have accomplished, great things in their field.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they apply to any sport or any sort of team organized or a group of people getting together for a common goal. You can easily make those connections, and that was also one of the motivating factors for the movie is that not everybody can get themselves to Ignatius or can get themselves to the Patriots to get coached by Belichick or Tony Dungy or whomever. But if you can get to the movie, the object of the game, then you're going to get to all these guys and you're going to pick something up. And it will help you not only with your game or whatever it is you're competing in, but it'll help you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So that's worth our time.
If you haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, why don't we show you the trailer of Matt Waldeck's film, The Object of the Game. And when we come back on the other end, we're going to be talking about another film that he has coming out. And then it's time for some themes and some quotes and everything that we normally do at the end of this show. We'll be right back.
I think the object of the game is to appreciate it, it's to give back. And if you're involved in it, it's to compete at the highest level to try to help your team and your teammates be successful.
I have the honor of introducing Jonathan Gannon as the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals.
I've had some really good mentors, some in high school. My head football coach at St. Ignatius, Coach Kyle, he wrote a book called The Object of the Game, and I think it's a manual that you can take anywhere and get a team running the right way.
What does the object of the game mean to me? It's a great question.
The object of the game is to win,
To play.
To compete.
to build a great team.
To be the best version of myself on that football field.
To help people reach and realize their highest potential.
I've admired Coach Chico from a distance when I heard about the influence he's had on the young men that played for him. Not really just the success that he's had, but really how he's impacted their lives. It was important for us to reach out and acknowledge the great contributions he's made to football on every level and thank him for that effort.
You know, we all have chapters in our life, and some of those chapters are longer than others. Some are evolving, some are dissolving. And the lessons learned from competitive athletics are life lessons. I want to continue to honor that, to recognize it, and to give back to it.
See yourself winning it. Okay? And I'm going to sit there and enjoy this. You know what I'm going to enjoy? Watching you love this game. Watching you have passion about it. Passion. Things get done in this world when you have passion. That's what we are. Come on, who the hell am I? Passionate play tonight. Those people out there, show them. Love the game, man. You love the game by the way you play it. Passionate. Let's go.
We are back with The Object of the Game, and we have Matt Waldeck with us today, filmmaker behind the documentary The Object of the Game, and also former Wildcat football player. So we've been talking about that as we've had him in the studio today. And Dad, Coach Kyle has always given our guests themes to pick from on how sports impacted their lives, right?
Right.
So that's how you explained
Right.
it to Matt, right?
Yeah, well, English teachers, we always have themes. I mean, that's an important idea. And again, I don't know what he's going to say now. I give him a whole long list of themes that I always thought connected to not only sports, but life. You know, and I let them pick one out. And I don't know what it is until right now. So, okay, Matt, you're up. Here we go.
Yeah, so I picked adaptability.
Nice.
Yeah, adaptability. I think in terms of, certainly my trajectory, the game of football, I always loved the halftime adjustment, right? Certainly we get into it in the film. Many of your 11 state titles, you were down at halftime, right? And Ignatius teams, before certainly I got through there, was always, they're going to come out, they're going to make the adjustments, right? And there's a lot of drama in that because you have a ticking clock, you've got 15 minutes at half, and you have to solve it, right? And you're getting together, and all right, well, you had one plan, and here it was, and you got to throw all that out, and you have to be willing to start over. Still with the same kind of vision and goal in mind, and you've done all the preparation, but you have to be able to adapt in order to accomplish your goals. And I think that's a great virtue that any sport can teach you, to help you sort of stay grounded in whatever you're trying to accomplish in life. That success is not a linear rising sort of line. It's a kind of a messy zigzag.
Oh, yeah.
And I think especially for kids today, understanding that and giving yourself a little bit of grace, not to be lazy or to lose focus, but to understand that there's going to be setbacks and there's going to be challenges, and that's part of it. It's not something to be embarrassed about or nervous about. It's a part of becoming successful.
Right. You play a tough schedule, and that people can kind of go, why? Because it forces you to adapt. The other team's good. You can't just always think, well, plan A is going to work all the time. We don't have to worry about it. They're not going to let you do that. If state champion last year, you have a lot to work on because everybody on your schedule is adjusting.
Right.
And now you have to adapt your philosophy, and there's going to be changes made. Yeah. That applies all through life. I mean, you have to be aware of there's a point where maybe that worked for a while, but we have to change our course here a little bit. So that's part of life.
Yeah.
And that's a day on a film set too. It's a
I
10
can
or 12
imagine.
hour day. Sometimes it rains, and you can't shoot the exterior shot. And,
Right.
All right, there's a ripple effect now we have an 18-day schedule and we have only 3 days scheduled for outside, and we just lost one. So what are we moving around? And
Right.
it's the same skill set.
Oh, yeah. That has to, in film, I can imagine.
Yeah, we
Just-
did it on your show.
You sure did.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
we wanted to come in earlier, this jump of the season, that those circumstances change. Okay, so now what does it become about? It becomes about the object of the game, not about Chico's 2022 season necessarily, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, all right, well, we didn't lose focus, and in many ways that helped us get down to, well, what is Chico really about, right? What is the object of the game really about? So in many ways, if you're open to adapting, it can bring your true kind of goal into focus.
Right. No, that's a great choice because I think that applies. There's just the way, especially in the modern world we live in,
Oh yeah.
there's just not just one easy road to stay on the whole way. There's too much comes to play. I mean, in documentaries is not fiction. Documentary is not fiction. And we're going to have you talk a little bit more. But it's nice to write the happy ending. And they lived happily ever after.
Yeah. Or it's nice to tell people
Where
to
is
stand.
that?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right. So Lovely Jackson, which
Your next film?
you talk about adaptability. It's about a Cleveland man, Ricky Jackson, who was the longest wrongfully incarcerated person in U.S. history. Right?
Wow.
Swept up for a murder he didn't commit, and was 82 days away from sitting in Ohio's electric chair. You'd never know about this guy if that had happened, right? So there's talk about a ripple effect, but that's adaptability. He certainly embodies that theme,
Right.
obviously.
Definitely.
But and that'll be streaming this month on Amazon, so
Good.
everybody should.
That's
'Cause
amazing.
That is a
We wanna
Yeah.
get
How
it.
did you
it's a
find him?
Powerful,
Black History
powerful
Month.
story.
You
Yeah.
watched it.
Yeah, it's a powerful story.
We had
Yeah.
to send it to you to make sure that
Yes.
I was going to do a good job.
Okay, they're legit.
Here's
They're legit. And I'm my wife and
Proof.
kids, they're legit.
We're
proof
talking
of your
about
work.
tryouts. Here's
Yeah.
a tryout.
Yeah.
Film.
how did you find him? Like, how did you?
I read about his story in the newspaper, just like everybody else, when he received his first settlement from the state of Ohio. That was in 2016, right? So I went through because I had never directed anything before. I had only produced narrative films, and so I went about my usual sort of process, trying to find a director. It's hard to find a director for a doc who doesn't ideate the project themselves, because it's a long, arduous process. It's low budgets typically, so it's hard to get a gun for hire to come in and do a doc usually, independent anyway, because the budgets are lower. But I read about him in the paper. I cold called every single lawyer I read in the newspaper article. I couldn't get anywhere with it. And then we had just started our company, and we had a small film fund. We had 3 people in it. We had, my dad, my business partner's dad, and a guy who had owned a few golf courses.
Yeah.
And so I was giving a quarterly update. We hadn't done anything. There's nothing to talk about.
Right.
Here's what we're trying to do. And I said, hey, I'm after this guy. I'm trying to find this guy. And he said, oh, Ricky Jackson. He said, that guy's my next door neighbor.
No.
And that's a true story.
Oh my gosh.
So after looking for about a year, like 4 days later, I sat with him for 3 days straight. We talked for 10 hours a day, and he told me his story exactly how he tells you in that movie. Same triggers and same parts that are tough for him to talk about, same parts that are happy and sad.
Yeah.
So and then we went back to the actual prison he was sent to, and he sat in that prison and he told his story, and so adaptability. I was right in the middle of COVID. In my company, we'd never done nonfiction, and we couldn't get any directors in. So I had a relationship with him, and obviously it's a very fine line between being exploitative and being respectful of the story. So I said, all right, well, it's a pretty bold vision. Like I'll direct it, and we didn't use a script. I knew his story backwards and forwards, and we'd say, okay, we're going to do this part now. And then he would say what he was going to say, and we would just roll the camera, and we shaped it in the edit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for you, right? Like you said, hey, use the great analogy. You said, oh, it's like having a puzzle, and you just throw it up in the air, and then you just, all right, well, this piece is here, and
handle it, Matt. Put it together.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You don't know what Goodell's going to say.
Right.
You don't know what Tony Romo or Bill Belichick is going to say.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to adapt
Right.
and say, all right, well, this goes here.
You don't write things and
Yeah.
hand it to me.
Yeah.
You don't write things. Mr.
Say this.
Goodell,
Yeah.
would you say this? And no.
Right.
Yeah.
This is reality.
Yeah.
This is just do it like what you believe.
Yeah.
And handle it.
Yeah.
And that's the authenticity
Right.
of documentary.
Yeah. I want to ask you, just like, was there one thing, what was the biggest surprise when you were filming The Object of the Game? Like, was there something, a moment where you're like, oh my gosh, that did not go the way I thought that was going to go, or that interview didn't go the way I thought that was going to go, or good, or, we can stay positive. Like anybody surprising?
Well, I mean, the comeback was a real.
Oh,
that
the
was
Cleveland
good
Heights game.
luck.
All right.
I was going to ask, when you were talking about being down at the half, I mean, you were there for the Cleveland Heights game. Dad, it was like, what, 14, 40?
Yeah, 42 to 14.
42
Not that
to
I
14
remember
at the
things like
half.
that. I try to forget them. But
Yeah.
Largest deficit in playoff history for
Right.
sure. But
Right.
maybe
History of
scores.
playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, in the history of Ohio playoffs. So that is,
Ohio playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, just really quick, like I was always trying to prepare for, okay, what's going to be the last game? And I was actually at a fundraiser in like heels and a dress.
Yeah, we were filming you.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, I don't think I made the cut, but I was like driving to Cleveland Heights going, oh my gosh, this is the last game.
Yeah, you're in a cocktail dress.
I was in a cocktail dress and
Yeah.
I ran up to the security guard and I go, where do I get tickets? And he looks me up and down. He's like, do you know somebody in here? I'm like, then I felt really weird because I'm like, my dad, and I'm like a grown woman in a cocktail dress trying to get into a high school football game. But anyway, that comeback, you got that on film. Is that in the documentary?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Is it a big part? Like,
Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but
Right,
I
right.
mean
We
that was the big theme. I'd say the other big surprise was no sort of learning to understand what was going on between Chico and Pat and your family throughout this 40-year history.
oh gosh. No.
I'd say that that became a much larger part of the story.
Oh, interesting.
Is understanding. Obviously, we as the public, know Chico in a certain way. That consuming what's in the newspapers and everything else. But then understanding what was going on in this other sort of private ecosystem. That was a big surprise.
Yeah.
So yeah, like your mother said, we're sort of at the edge of a cliff of retirement. That's really, and is Chico prepared for that? That's universal human drama.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we were filming you. You did make the cut.
Oh my gosh.
And your mom, and because this is going to be the unceremonious exit of Chuck Kyle as getting run out the door,
Yeah.
and also, so that was really lucky.
Yeah. That game. I'm just glad you got it on film because I don't know if I've been through a lot of those games. That one was
And,
that one was unforgettable.
It was unforgettable. And, what you go through all of it, right?
Yeah.
You're defeated, then you're victorious. And then we see Chico post game. You learn this is how you're supposed to win. This is how you're supposed to be a winner and speak to your opponent and everything like that. It's just, you couldn't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah. That was lucky.
That was lucky.
Well, it wasn't scripted.
No.
I will say
That was not your plan.
If that
Pat?
were scripted, I don't know. I don't think I'd.
You'll be hearing from the OHSAA.
Oh, I would be.
If that was scripted.
Especially the first half would not be scripted.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. So I think that, that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
And then just, seeing how much Chico, Pat, the staff actually believed in what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
The speeches weren't just motivational or rah-rah or whatever. This is real stuff that everybody believes in, truly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made the whole thing go.
Yeah.
That's what made it work.
Yeah.
So it's not shocking that Chico and the program found the success that it did.
Yeah. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to give you the quote. The quote that
You don't have to write it or
you don't have to write it, but we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the last segment of The Object of the Game with Matt Waldeck, filmmaker, Zodiac Films. I don't think I've mentioned your company name, so there we go. I got to
Zodiac
Features. The Zodiac Features. So we wrapped this all up. You said you didn't have Coach Kyle as a teacher, an English teacher,
No.
but had you ever heard of the quote?
That he would give a quote?
Yeah, that he would give a quote to students who maybe it weren't.
An infraction.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
an infraction.
I
That's a
just
good, nice
heard
way of
that
putting
Chico never gave a demerit
No.
in his career.
it. I actually had never
Which
heard that until
I
last time.
find as a demerit recipient at Ignatius to be one of the most admirable traits that Chico has.
And he's shaking
revealed.
his head over there too. He's in total agreement
That
about
is-
demerits. See,
That is admirable.
Yeah.
But no, I understand that. Yeah, Chico, in lieu of a demerit, would give a quote
Mhm.
for the kid to learn.
right. Well, I just figured I shouldn't be an idiot in class writing that 50 times. What is the value of that?
Yeah.
But if a kid writes a Shakespeare quote 50 times, I bet you he'll remember it. And they do. I have guys come back going, "Hey, Mr. Carl, remember you gave me the quote for that?" Yeah, I really remember that.
Yeah.
Sure. You
They
know.
remember it.
They remember
that
if
quote.
they had to write it 50 times, they'll come back. I had to write "What you egg, young fry of treachery" or something like that. And so that happens. That happens.
All right.
So
So you have picked a
yes.
you have picked a quote for Matt.
I picked one I think fits so nicely. It's such a challenge, but this was a no-brainer, Pat.
Ah.
This is a no-brainer
Wow.
to me. For what you do, I think this is perfect. And it's a famous quote, so this won't totally shock people. It's from the play As You Like It. LaCharles, I had one from
As
him,
You
from
As
As
You
You
Like
Like
It.
It too. And it's a soliloquy, so the character's on stage. He's the only guy there. And it's an interesting metaphor all the way through from this theme. But this theme fits you and what you've done. This is Act 2, Scene 7. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. And that fits a documentary very, very nicely.
Yeah.
We're all actors. We don't realize it, but a documentary, we're characters in that documentary. And, the whole world is a stage, but we're merely players. Come on. We're going to come, we're going to go, and the story will end. There's other stories and other documentaries you're going to do. But that's what you do in your life, right there.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, as you look at these situations, all these potential stories that are out there and drama and like you mentioned, like you look at football, especially. I mean, were you watching the Super Bowl going like, oh my gosh, this would make a great Like the kid, what was his name? The kid, it's his birthday, and
The
it's
rookie.
his first Super Bowl
Right.
appearance, and he runs it in for a
Right.
pick six and
Cooper
touchdown.
DeJean.
That was
Eugene
it.
from
Yeah.
Iowa.
He could be
Yeah.
that could be a documentary. I mean, that's
Sure.
incredible.
Right, of that
Yeah.
story. And honestly, going back to lovely Jackson,
Yeah.
I mean, as you heard earlier, you were reading about it in a newspaper.
Right.
Yeah.
What made you read that newspaper that day?
Yeah.
That, I mean, the world is, then an idea happens, and here you go.
Yeah.
There's so many dramas out there, really. There really are. And that's what documentaries
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, you sort of take a snapshot of
Mm-hmm.
somebody's moment, some sort of. I mean, you could do a whole documentary about our football week after September 11th.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
you can get as micro focus as you'd like, and all those different people and what was happening hour to hour,
Right.
minute to minute
Right.
of that day.
And people wondering why why'd we still practice that day?
Yes.
And why even worry about what they feel? They don't understand. There was some reasons that you do that.
Yeah.
Now putting a button on the Pitzer College Sagehens. So,
Right. I'm excited.
I go to I go to LA. I had cut up my little highlight tapes right on the VHS, and I
sure.
just mailed it out to them. I'd never been there.
Oh, I
And-
thought you were going to go out to visit. I don't know. Whatever.
I visited in February. Yeah,
Okay.
after we were done with the
Right.
season.
Okay.
But, I visited, and within my first week there was an earthquake in Los Angeles, and then fires. Right. so relevant to this year, unfortunately. And that coach was a Harvard grad, and he played for the Colts. He's an academic All-American at Harvard, then played and he was a vegan, and he coached without it. He practiced coaching with no shoes on, so it's very different than Ignatius.
Wow.
And he was about 6'6", like 300 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So a little different energy than you, Chico.
Okay.
But
All right.
but yeah, the whole mountain was on fire, and there's ash in the air and everything, and there no school outside, no other sport, soccer team cancels, all that stuff. Football team, we practiced and we played the game that Saturday.
Right. Don't let don't let things dictate.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
It's a different work ethic. Like
It
Like
is.
that's what you guys keep coming back to
right.
too.
And a bunch of people were in the stands, and for about 2 hours, they forgot about what was happening in the world.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And those kids forgot about it. Weren't burdened with that
Right.
problem in the world.
Yeah.
And there's a
And
calming effect to that.
There is.
Yeah.
They won't take away what America does best.
Yeah.
They won't. And both coaches were in total agreement on that. No, they can't take that away from us.
Yeah.
All right.
I know there's not a lot you can say at this point because there's still a lot of things in the works.
Yeah.
But I keep getting the question, okay, so when can I see this film? But there's still some I's to dot, T's to cross. Is that what where you are in
Deals
things?
to sign.
Deals to
Deals to
sign.
sign would be- I think that's a.
I was trying to put it a little bit more
Yeah.
vaguely, but you say whatever you're comfortable saying, Matt.
I would say that if I had to guess, look for this to tee up the next start of the 2025 football season
Mhm.
would be my guess.
Mhm.
And we're speaking to big networks so that everybody's going to be able to see this, as they should.
Mhm.
And I think we'll find a home in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Would be my guess.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And
And then
we'll make sure we tell everyone.
the other question I got, will there be a debut or a screening in Cleveland? People always ask me that. They're like, are they going to show it here first? Or is there going to be some sort of
Look.
red carpet situation? They want to see what my dad's going to
Red
wear,
carpet.
who he's wearing, who
I
wore it best.
mean, Yeah, you can
Yeah?
do whatever you want. Yeah, I mean,
Should we? Do we need to just
independent
get it
film.
going?
You
It's
do
an independent
do
film.
whatever you want.
I don't-
Okay.
I mean, look, the Kyles. You guys are Cleveland royalty here.
Oh,
so,
really? Yeah.
So
Right.
no, you can do whatever. Yeah, I think everybody wants to celebrate the film. Obviously, I don't know what the math is for how many guys went through that program.
Oh.
in
Yeah.
40 years, but I'd say maybe 200 kids per year times 40 maybe
Yeah.
is a conservative estimate. Not to mention the kids that go through the classroom.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are going to want to watch that film, not necessarily to celebrate Chico, but so they can remember their time,
Yeah.
at Ignatius or with Chico, just like I did it, for the last hour, right?
Yeah.
Because it was an important time for them that probably shaped them in ways that they don't think about every day.
Yeah.
But see those results in their lives as a father or a teacher or a coach or a leader in their own profession.
Yeah. Well, you're in good with my mom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're-
Yep. All
you're
right. So
solid.
then the
You're solid.
red carpet party might be at our house,
Oh,
and
She'll
Pat
start
Kyle.
preparing the menu right now.
Right, right.
She's there.
Right. She'll get it all set up. So you'll probably be invited over.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
We'll make sure everyone knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Matt, well, thank you. It's been so great to catch up and get a little bit more in depth about this documentary that I know everybody's been asking us. I know Big Play has been getting a lot of questions. So I hope that everything goes well over the next few weeks. You'll have to keep us updated.
Well, thanks so much. And thanks, Chico.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
sure.
Thanks for having me.
It's always great to catch up with Matt. Aren't you excited, Dad? The documentary coming
sure.
soon?
I am. It's a very interesting feeling. How to describe it?
To be in the spotlight?
Okay. Honestly, I was an English teacher that also coached, and then things happen.
Yeah.
It's interesting how ex-players, students that go on to do things in their lives, and how roads do cross as years go by, and so on like that. So it is interesting. Whatever will come of it will come,
Yeah.
That's all.
I know. It'll be exciting to see. And so it was great for him to pop in. And I'm glad that we caught you up on the process. And of course, we're going to keep everybody updated when we find out exactly when the documentary will be out. But thank you so much for watching The Object of the Game. You can follow us on all of the Big Play social media channels. It's Big Play Sports Network, on X, on YouTube. And also you can download the free Big Play app that's on iOS and Roku. And we'll see you back here next week.